old distribution company, Giant, and 411 Video Magazine, and all that. Paul had roles in all those companies that you probably never even realized all this time. And then Paul became a leading manufacturer of skateboard decks. All his innovation turned him into being the man of skateboarding decks. And in his best year, when I say best by volume, he made 920,000 skateboards. What year was that, Paul?
2001.
I know you wanted to make $1 million.
I was trying, but the market softened up.
Yeah, 920,000.
And also in 2005, didn't you hit a milestone of something like 10 million skateboard decks? 2005.
Yeah, it's around 14 now that I've made in my career.
14 million skateboards.
Yeah.
So
not myself personally, but in my factories. But I built the machines, the molds, the tools, the processes. It takes a lot of people and a lot of man hours to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, so that means that everyone here has either ridden a Paul skateboard, a PS Stick skateboard, or whatever you're riding has been influenced by Paul's invention in skateboarding innovation. So, I mean, seriously, welcome the legendary Paul Schmidt right here. It's great to have him here. So that was a long welcome, but yeah, you know, you get the idea.
He deserves a long welcome.
He does. Yeah, you get the idea.
Well, thanks. It's great to be back to the Tampa Bay area here. Pretty amazing to be doing this event here. I was fortunate to come skate the park in March when I came out for the Tampa Pro, and I also got to do a workshop with a bunch of Lakeland teachers. And some of those students are here today that did Create Skate in their school. When we get over to the Art Museum, you'll get to see their work if you didn't get to see it last night.
Great. So, Paul, what year did you start skateboarding?
I started skateboarding in the hills of Wisconsin, rural Wisconsin. We're talking like if you went 20 or 30 miles south of here and you're out in the middle of nowhere, that's the type of place I lived, only in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And it was 1973 and I was 10 years old.
And what kind of skateboard did you start riding on?
Well, the board that I rode was very similar to this board here to my right, which represents a skateboard from the 60s. However, it had clay wheels on it because that's what production skateboards from the 60s had, is clay wheels, and it had very rough trucks. The neighbors next door had bought it at a swap meet or flea market or something for $3, you know, and it was a leftover from the 60s. And I just loved it, and they happened to have a brand new driveway. I lived in a 100-year-old house, so my driveway wasn't too good for skateboarding. So I go to their house and use their skateboard, and then eventually in '74, skateboarding was really coming big in society. The urethane wheel had come out, which changed drastically because the clay wheel was really hard and slippery. It gripped a little better than the metal wheels before that, but still, nevertheless, the urethane wheels what really changed skateboard and made it really friendly. So I had $20 and I spent it at the Zaire department store buying my first skateboard.
And so at that point, were you already realizing that, hey, I need to make this better? Was that already in your mindset? I mean, you were already thinking that?
I wouldn't say that was in my mindset yet. In 1975, I moved to Tampa, and this was the first time I encountered another skater.
So you had never skated with anyone? The culture wasn't there. It was just you were
There
just.
was no culture. There was, I mean, the neighbors that owned the skateboard didn't ride it, you know. So there was nobody to skateboard with because I lived in a rural area. And but when I moved to Tampa, there were other kids in the cul-de-sac that skated a lot, and I got to skate with a lot of guys. And then the Skate Wave skate park opened up in Tampa.
We have a scooter emergency on the street course real quick. We got interrupted by there, Paul. Sorry about that. I think he'll be all right. So, and at what point did you start inventing? Like when you figured out, like, was it the rails? Was it skateboard decks? Like, what was it?
Well, so I was a kid that always made things. My dad ran a college theater, and he did lots of woodworking stuff. So I was the kid that was always building a go-kart, gravity powered, of course, you know, a tree fort. You know, I lived in rural Wisconsin. I was a country kid, you know, so when I moved to Tampa, I became a city kid. And the access to those tools and resources weren't the same anymore.
Gotcha. And then the idea is, I guess you started. I think you told me before you got a job at a local hardware store.
Yeah. So in Tampa, still there today on Bush Boulevard, there's a place called Craftsman Supply. So if you wanted to go make a retro, old school oak skateboard like this, you could go get some oak there. You could get some ash. You could get some teak. You could get whatever you want. You can't buy it at Home Depot. You could get it there. And that store is still there today. That family is still there running it. the parents that that I worked under back then, they passed away a couple years ago, and they couldn't really hire me because I was 12.
So you're 12 and you're trying to go work at this hardware store to get into, be just around materials and do cool stuff.
Yeah, so basically they give me a quarter an hour to sweep the floor and help customers, but you know, technically I couldn't be employed at 12, you know.
Hey, do you want to fast forward it here to kind of break down the skateboards that we have in front of us and what these boards represent, what they mean?
Yeah, so basically, so here's a board from the 60s. A board from the 60s could have been made with any piece of fence post, the face from a drawer in your furniture. You know, it's just a piece of 3/4 inch pine wood. You know,
Happy Go Skateboarding.
And you know, it's got a slightly rounded edge. Some had square edges. You know, notice how the trucks are screwed to the board because it's 3/4 of an inch thick. Now also notice that there is no kicktail, and there's not much leverage. So when you ride this thing, you can put your weight on the back and barely pick it up, you know, because there's no leverage. And we'll get into talking about leverage and levers later on, because without a lever and leverage, we wouldn't have an ollie.
Hey, real quick, all you guys that are skating the street course right here, go skate somewhere else in the park and show Paul some respect. Hey, my man right here with the red shirt, with you guys just hop off here. Hop off. Go skate somewhere else. Thank you.
Okay, so here's a board from the 70s. So this is solid oak. Now this has a glued-on kicktail. Some of the boards were also called wedge tails, so they went straight flat and had a kicktail. And this was still pretty obtainable. This was a common make in a high school wood shop in the 70s. And it was obtainable. You know, you could go make this right now pretty easy. Now notice that it's also screwed in. There's no bolts. Somewhere in the last half of the 70s, bolts became standard as trucks started to have more standard hole patterns. Before then, the hole patterns were all over the place. So they'd have to drill Swiss cheese in the board, basically, to make it work. So you went to the skate park, and they had this jig at Skatewave Skate Park. They put it on a board, and they drill it to match whatever trucks you got.
Yeah, I never noticed that until you pointed that out. I just automatically, the first skateboard I ever saw had hardware, so never ever thought of that until right then.
Yeah, it's a big deal. So here's an 80s deck. This represents the first half of the 80s, and you can see how we don't have much of a nose. If anybody rode a Sims Lester or a Vision Animal Skin, or a bunch of boards were this shape at the Vision Camp, they used it for everything. It's 10 by 30. All pro skateboards were pretty much 10 by 30 in that era. There wasn't much diversity until Christian Asoy came up with the hammerhead. And then the diversity started. So this board is also laminated plywood. It's a triangular concave. So the concave gets shallower in the back, it's deeper in the front, but that also makes it break rather easy. And that was the context of where skateboards were at in that era. So here's a skateboard that represents the 90s and beyond, really, because for the most part, other than widths going up and down, little shape variations, a skateboard's foundation is set. And it's set with 7 plies of hard maple. The average board has 14-inch wheelbase. You know, it might be 8 inches or 8 1/4 or 8 1/2 or 7 3/4, whatever your preference is, you know. And if you notice these boards as well, grip tape wise, this has nice black grip tape on it because that has a silicon carbide grip, is that good grip that lasts well. Well, notice in the 60s there was no grip, okay? And in the 70s, it was rubber grip tape, like you'd have on a diving board of a swimming pool or something like that, you know, and it's just a skinny strip of it, you know. Imagine trying to get your grip on that, you know. And but we were skating skate parks with snake runs and stuff on that level skateboard, you know, in the 70s. And then our 80s board basically has what resembles die-cut grip tape, because the grip tape would be made to shape of the board, but it was inside the edge, which didn't give you that board control and basically made you ride a board 1/2 inch wider than you really needed.
And that's the way it was handed to us back then, so it's what you accepted. It's like,
Right.
oh, that's the way I bought my first complete skateboard. It was like that. That's
Right.
how it showed up.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it showed up. It wasn't a choice. It was just the result of whatever development had happened or whatever decisions people made. And quite often that was a business person's decision. You know,
So-
they could sell the grip tape for more money if they die cut it than if they sold it as a sheet.
Or roll.
Or roll.
Or roll. So what I'd like to do now is get a few of our skateboarders that are out here. Jeremy Nibbs, Sam Bellapini, and Aaron Austin. You guys come down here. Welcome those guys. They're on display now. They're on display.
Okay.
Paul's gonna make you do some funny things
So
here.
guys,
hey Paul, we're thinking about skating down here, kind of on that bank and stuff, since it's cleared out.
So we're going to skate in this area here. And what I want you to do first is I want you all just drop in and bust a kickflip for us. You know, or do a grind on a ledge. Just do a couple of your basic tricks, and then we're going to do those same tricks on some of these older boards. This is a 3-person demo.
Yeah, right. You got it. Well put. Kickflip, 50-50, no problem. Very, very easy for these guys.
Anybody got a tray flip on the bank here for me?
Yeah, George doesn't have that.
George, you got a tray flip for me?
Woo, soggy. It's gonna get worse on the other boards. Perfect tray flip right there.
All right, so we're going to talk about how the progression of the skateboard has moved along. So I want you guys to swap out. You can keep on riding your boards and swap in and ride this board. Now this is just in the 90s example, so really you're going to find very similar experiences that you are right now. However, it's just a different setup. You know, the trucks might be a different height, the wheels might be a different diameter, that kind of deal. Now, I don't know if you noticed as well, these boards have different size wheels on them because the wheels are spec'd to the air that the board represents, you know? And again, just like board shapes, there's diversity all over the place. We got a front rock going there. So the hard reality is I'm asking these guys to hop on a new board they're not used to. However, all these boards have Indy trucks with Bones bushings in them and Bones wheels, so they've got a nice, consistent base for them to work with.
Do that. You can land an extra.
Yeah, let's see that 360 flip.
Now notice he's doing this off of his tail. Now notice he landed down a little rough on the nose. And now I want to see him do the same trick on this board because there is no nose to land on. So he's going to have to land it a little better. Also, the leverage is going to be drastically different for him. Notice how the wheels are huge. Okay? Notice how there's half-inch risers. He's like riding a high rise. You know, he's up top now.
It's a 4-wheel drive.
You got it? 4-wheel drive. Oh! Now that was more proper. That was more proper than he did on a modern board. How about that?
I think we need to go back, Paul. Bring it back.
Yeah, he's got the skills to handle that. I mean, this is pretty close era-wise, you know. Can anybody do an ollie grind up onto the ledge here? I saw some guys drop in and do that earlier on the boards. And then as we move along and have our boards, everybody just sort of keeps skating on the different boards and see what you got. So see, going up on that ledge, he had a tail, he had leverage. Now, nollie, I want you to nollie grind that for me, okay? You need to nollie grind that on the 80s board, okay?
Or a nollie heel flip.
You gonna nollie grind it for us?
Or a nollie heel flip on the bank or something.
Come on, let's do a nollie on here. Prove what you can do. Now, there is the force of mass and momentum, okay? Now that was an example. He used mass and momentum, but he didn't really pop the nose. He didn't really get any air, okay? And that's okay, because the nollie didn't exist till the 90s anyways, or till the end of the 80s, you know? So it was a trick that wasn't there because the product wasn't there yet.
You mean the Chinese ollie?
So basically, as we were in the late 80s, I started to make boards of a parallel concave. So the concave is parallel, and you see the hips on the side, on the nose and the tail, and it matches. And that's was me just listening to what skaters wanted and what they liked, and constantly taking that feedback.
So Paul,
Okay.
are you saying that basically skaters' abilities started shaping the board shape, and technology started shaping their abilities? There was this interaction between that?
Well, there was very much. As your product progresses, you want to do more with it. Skateboarding is so much just all about progression and how to progress and how to move forward, you know? And that's where the satisfaction of achievement is you work so hard to do a trick, you fall on your ass 100 times. But when you make it, the satisfaction is huge. Yeah.
Those are
Now
big.
notice how the tail on that board is really, really soft, you know, and it's really hard. The wheelbase is really long, you know. So, who wants to bust out the 70s solid oak board for me? I need a tray flip on this one. What do you think? You got it?
Looking good,
So what do
Aaron.
you guys got in the 70s here for me? We're going
This
further
broadcast
back
is about
now.
over. I'll
We're
start
going
another
back
one right
to,
now.
to Skate Wave Skate Park and Rainbow Wave Skate Park. Is there anybody here that skated Skate Wave? All right. How about Rainbow Wave? It was the newer park in the Bay Area. It was a little better than Skateway was. I understand you guys have a park in Lakeland. Someone said hospital or something. So it might be sort of like the gap in between this one and that one. Okay, now notice he has a kicktail. It's solid oak. He does